Welcome to the Civic Circus podcast. I am Spencer Duncan.
And I'm Leslie Fleuranges from 10 to 11 Care Pet Nursing Hotel.
Let's start the show.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You
for
brought a
having
friend.
Me. I did. She's around here somewhere.
Yeah, she's around here. She's nice and soft.
The co-CEO of TLC, Mimi Fleuranges.
What kind of dog is that?
She is a Lhasa Apso.
Really? That's she bigger than someone?
Yes. You know, they've grown big here in
My
Kansas.
parents had one, a dog for a while, but he was a little smaller. But I guess you're right. It definitely is the same. Now that I look at it, look at her.
Yeah. Yeah, she's the one before this one was even bigger.
Really?
I don't know. I had tiny ones. In,
the ones
New
my
York.
parents had was tiny.
This one, big girl, 25.5. She's 25.5 pounds, and
really,
I like,
that's. You said she was 17.
She's 17 and solid as a rock.
Have you had her all the whole life?
I've had her since she was 6 months old.
Okay, so yes, pretty much.
Since,
yeah. Is that so? We'll talk about what you do, who you are, all that here. But so, do you have other pets? When you take care of other pets, do you then have your own lots of pets, or do you get to live through everyone else's pets?
No, I get to live through everyone else's pets. I had two at one point. I had two boys at one point, and Mimi's my first girl. And girls are much sweeter.
Yeah.
Much sweeter. I mean, the boys, they love me, but they hated everybody else.
Right.
My neighbor used to call Max Maxi Pad because he said, your dog's always on his period. He hates everybody. So, poor Boo Boo. So, yes, this is my first girl. And, I only have the one. And then all the folks that visit us at the hotel are my pseudo pets.
Nice. So let's talk about that hotel, right? Tender, loving care, pet nursing
hotel.
Hotel. That's it. See?
I know.
I know.
Every time I type it into my phone, it wants to say home
Yeah,
too.
you're like, no, hotel. There's a difference.
Hotel.
There's a total difference.
Exactly.
So talk about how you started, why and how you got into that, and then what it does today, how it's grown over the last few years.
Okay, sure. Well, I never had pets growing up. We lived in a co-op apartment in New York City, and you weren't allowed to have pets. So I had guppies and
that's a pet.
Yeah, it's a pet. Guppies and turtles, and then lots of years go by, and I was recruited to come and work for Hallmark Cards in Kansas City, Missouri. And I did that for 5 years almost. And then I was recruited to come to Hill's Pet Nutrition, which is your next door neighbor, was your next door neighbor. And I really went because I saw that pet food and the pet care industry is a booming industry.
Yeah.
And before that, I had worked at Lipton and Clairol and all these other places that, were not booming. So it was great to be at a booming industry. And my job was to come up with new products.
Yes, you were in marketing, branding, whatever.
Branding, innovation, new products. And so I got to travel all over the world. We were in 80 countries, and I think now they're in 85. And to talk to loads of consumers all over the world. And it's the same everywhere. We now see pets as family. And one of the things that I noticed, even at Hills, is that people who had older pets, sick pets, anxious pets, they really couldn't find anywhere to take those pets to keep them while they went on vacation.
Otherwise, they put them in with I guess, for lack of the general population, right?
That wouldn't work.
Right.
So they ended up staying home. They didn't go to graduations. They didn't go to weddings. They didn't go on vacation. They were waiting for this pet to, leave their lives, and then they would go and lead the rest of their lives. And I just felt like that was, incredibly tragic. And why is it that there was nothing like that out in the marketplace? And so, being an innovation type person, I decided to open 10 to 11 Care Pet Nursing Hotel. Unfortunately, we opened during the pandemic on May 18th, 2020. But we have managed to sustain ourselves and to grow over the last 5 years. The veterinarians in town recommend us to their patients. Other customers of ours recommend us. And so we've been able to grow. And, we still need to have more awareness in the community about what we do and how we differentiate from a Woof's or a Taj Mahal or a Dog Day Afternoon. But, it's beautiful because our customers are so grateful that we exist, because they can go have a vacation. They can have a great time and know that when their pet, when they come and pick their pet up, their pet's going to be in the same condition as when they left, as opposed to when they left it at Aunt Susie's and they came back and the pet was traumatized.
Right. I understand what just happened.
Yeah.
So dogs and cats, is that what you?
Cats and dogs.
So
dogs
I can't bring you
and
my
cats.
turtle. I haven't.
No, not the turtle.
My little box turtles might not be in your wheelhouse. It only needs worms every other day. You'll be fine. She'll be all right.
Yeah, it could get eaten by a cat.
I know.
We don't want to do that. Nice little treat.
Yeah, well, I think I think what you're offering is important because, as we mentioned before, I have a geriatric cat household, right? I've got a 19-year-old cat, and then I have two
Beautiful.
15-year-old cats.
Wow.
Now, the 19-year-old has his own kind of issues, but the 15-year-old, they're healthy, and there will come a point I'm going to have to, I kind of got them, recently inherited them, if you will, but they're great cats, but there will probably come a point where I would like to board them, and one is very skittish, and so sending him to the regular vet, who they do a great job, but yes, being there for 3 or 4 days mixed in with all the noise and the stress,
Yes,
I mean, this is a cat who someone comes in the front door a level down, runs under the bed, and they're not even close. So, so I'm sure those experiences probably are very traumatizing.
They are, because
those
as I
cats.
always tell people, cats are a ball of stress. They're just, everything stresses them.
Yeah.
Door opens, the fire engine goes by, you cough. It's all stressful to them.
Right.
So putting them somewhere where it's really crazy to board is difficult for them. And so we have our own. We have the upstairs penthouse for them, so they're up and away from the dogs, and I think that helps them. And then we have fish tanks for them to look at for enrichment, and we have the pheromones so that they can stay calm. So, it's pretty posh, as my girlfriends say. It's a very bougie hotel.
But I think the important thing to note too is that everyone who's working there is professionals in the field, veterinarians, licensed, and the reason I point out is, for instance, one of my cats is diabetic, so it has to give it shots 2 days a week, in your facility where you're probably gonna be able to manage that. Okay.
No, we do that. So we don't have veterinarians on site, but we are trained to give
and
insulin.
you've got ones you can work with if there's
yes,
issues. That's what I
exactly.
meant.
And we do. If it comes down to it, we can transport the pet to their veterinarian of record.
Yeah, but I think that's important because, as you know too, there's some places out there, throwing no one under the bus in particular, but there are places who will say, we'll take the animals, and then when you get there, you realize you weren't really qualified. You didn't have that skill set to take care of my cat or dog who had a special need in that respect. As they get older, more special needs.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So,
and we also have puppies.
Yeah.
Because they're not sick and they're not old and they don't need anything. However, they're precious.
Yeah.
And mom and dad do not want their puppies running around with a whole bunch of other dogs.
Yep.
So, that's, great for us, because we want people to know we're not just for older pets, but we are for those precious pets and we are for those anxious pets. The difference being that we don't have 10 or 8 dogs running around together, because these dogs are, in many cases, too anxious or antisocial or reactive or too precious to be with a whole bunch of other dogs. So it's all one-on-one customized care, which is great.
So you opened it during the pandemic. I always tell people I got elected to city council during the pandemic, so I was like, what have I gotten myself into? I didn't expect the whole world to, but just like that, in my case, that's not what you expected either. You're gearing up. You've worked for years to finally get it open, and then just as you're opening it, hello world, collapsing all around us.
Exactly.
So, but a lot of business didn't survive that. Who either had just opened or tried to open at that same time. So how did you make it through? I mean, what were those days like, and what finally pulled you through to keep you alive through that time?
What a good thing turned out to be is that when we opened and people weren't traveling, still there were what do we call them? People who were police officers or people in the community that had to go to work, that came and left their pets with us. And there were still those people that needed to travel for whatever reason.
Sure.
So we weren't keeping tons of pets, but we were keeping some. And, I had saved money and so that we had some working capital. And so, just kind of blew through the working capital to continue to pay people and keep the lights on.
Which gets scary too, because I'm sure when you start with that capital, you say to yourself, okay, this is going to last me, 3 to 5 years. And then suddenly 12 months in, you're like, well, there went 3 years worth of capital because of the chaos.
Exactly. So, if it wasn't for the planning of that, we probably would have folded also. But you know, God is good, and we were able to survive, and we're grateful to our customers. And I think, you know, not that we didn't want to be successful, because of course we did, but it was a blessing that, you know, a couple of our first customers who came, like they got it, they understood. We had a customer that came that needed to go out of town. The dog was blind; it could barely walk. It had many issues, and I had bought a cart that we could use to pull the dogs in and out. And we had a ramp out. We have a ramp out front, and we were able to put the dog in that, and you know, roll him around outside, help him to get out so that he could go to the bathroom, get back in. So you know, I felt like the first day my proof of concept was there. Like people got it. They were like, "Yeah, we get this. We need this." And it's very satisfying to have customers come in and say, "We are so glad you're here. We are so glad." So you know, it's a really a feel good kind of a business, and that's been a blessing.
No, I think that's great. And so I'm sure you had to shift your mindset a little bit during that time too, from whatever your plans were when you originally wanted to open. So maybe it helped that your background had marketing and branding in it. I'm sure that that probably helped you too to make that change. But I'm also sure you had to lean on some other folks in the community and other people to make that shift. I mean, what was that like in having to switch your mindset to, okay, we're going to make this work, but I can't, but all the big plans I had for the first 6 months, I'm going to have to hold off on those.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a couple of things. I mean, our pricing, right? I mean, people were not traveling, and the price point that I wanted to start with, we couldn't possibly start with that because people just, you know, they weren't working, you know, and so they couldn't afford it. So our pricing changed. I had trained, you know, I guess like 12 employees, and you know, we weren't having that same
you need 12.
kind of volume. So that was different. And then, you know, at first, I don't think the veterinarians really understood the value that we were bringing to the community. So that was something that grew over time, you know, by giving them pamphlets, by going in and introducing myself, by, you know, making them understand what it is that we do. And, you know, in most cases, you have to talk to the office manager. In some cases, I got to talk to the veterinarians. And also, you know, Dog Day Afternoon, which is a quote unquote maybe competitor. You know, Julie has been amazing in terms of sending pets that don't work at her facility over to tender
That's
loving
a good
care.
partnership because it benefits her. That doesn't. And then I'm sure you've sent some people. Hey,
exactly.
They're full, or I can't do. You know, why don't you go over there?
Yeah, and you know, I have to say that before I opened, I went to a pet care conference in St. Louis, and you know, talked to a lot of, you know, owners, and I learned a lot there. But one of the things that was amazing to me is how open people in the pet care business really are. I mean, I could sit down at any table and ask them, "So what's your pricing strategy? What do you do when, you know, someone doesn't show up to their shift? What do you do when this?" And so I learned a lot through that. And, you know, every once in a while, I still sit down with Julie or one of the vets and just kind of kick ideas and just talk about what's going on in the industry. You know, what could we be doing differently?
I think that's an important point because I do think it's business to business sometimes, because I think the smart businesses realize there's strength in numbers and there's room for a number of us in a marketplace, depending upon the market.
Exactly.
Before I started working at the League of Municipalities, I ran an association management company, and I worked for various different entities. One was a pest control industry. I was their executive director. One was recycling. There was a couple. And I can tell you, some of those industries very much had that open, hey, we're all here to benefit each other. And several of them had the, oh no, I'm in this, I can't tell them anything. I'm not going to sit down and be a mentor to this person or tell them about my pricing because they're going to turn around and get me later.
Right.
And that made a difference in how those businesses as a whole operated and how they interacted with the community and with their customers. And then also that understanding that, oh, I can't believe so-and-so couldn't make it. Well, they couldn't make it because you wouldn't help them.
Right.
And you didn't take any of their business. They just didn't make it because they needed a little help in the industry, which would have benefited you all. So I think that's important. It's good to know your industry is a little more like that, to help each other out.
It's totally like that. And I can get on the phone with any of them at any time and call up and say, hey, how did you handle this? How do you handle this? because they've been in the business way longer than I have.
Yeah.
And they really have an idea of, what works and what doesn't.
Well, and to that end, I know you've taken what you've learned
Mm-hmm.
and helped other
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs and businesses in the community unrelated to your industry.
Sure.
And so
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that was just something you naturally wanted to do as you got into it, or if
Mhm.
you fell into that as you realized, hey, I should be able
Yeah.
to take what I've learned, and especially with your background in marketing and branding, and because there's a lot of folks who can open a business, they have no idea then how to find their niche or get their message out, or how do they market it, and how they just don't, and that's why a
Mhm.
lot of them. We've talked about this in this podcast before. You can have the best. You open a restaurant, you can have the best food in town, but if no one ever knows you exist, it doesn't really matter, right?
Exactly.
So talk
Exactly.
about how you've turned that
Mhm.
into something where you've been willing to give back and help other entrepreneurs throughout the city.
So, one of the things that I think is important is connections, right? Like I just mentioned that I could call anybody in my industry, another daycare center in, Wisconsin and say,
Yeah.
how do you do this? I like to connect people. So if I meet someone that has a business and they're saying, God, I really wish I knew how to do this, or I really wish I could find someone that could do this for me. A lot of times I know people that can do that. And so then I connect them.
Yeah.
If I don't have the answer, a lot of times I know people
Yeah.
that can help them. And so I call myself the great connector. I love connecting people. I love having people, call me and say, thank you so much. So-and-so really helped me. So that's really one way that I do it. And then I go around and I, present my business and my background in marketing to several different organizations to give them a sense of, how did I get the idea? How did I translate that idea into a business? And how do I keep that business going? So I get a chance to do that pretty often and really give people a sense of how is it that you start a business. And, everybody says, oh, you have to have a business plan. Oh, you have to have a business plan. Yeah,
Yeah.
you do have to have a business plan. But you also have to recognize that being an entrepreneur is different than working for somebody else. So the business plan is important, but are you ready, willing, and able to do what you have to do to be an entrepreneur? Because it's a different
So how do you figure
situation.
that out? Because is this the first business you've owned?
No, this isn't the
Okay.
first business. And to be honest, I was in retail from the age of 15. I couldn't wait to work.
Yeah.
I wanted to work. And I wanted to be a buyer at, Lord and Taylor. That was my deal. And so I knew, once I became a buyer, I thought, I don't really know if this is really what I want to do.
Yeah.
And this was in high school and college. I actually had the opportunity to be a buyer. But I did know that I wanted to open my own business, and I thought I wanted a clothing store. Until I worked in an office where I was a consultant for small and minority-owned businesses, and one of the businesses that I opened for someone or helped open for someone was a boutique, and I realized, that's a horrible business,
I was gonna say
man.
that industry sounds brutal.
It's brutal. I mean,
a lot of them are, but that one always sounds brutal.
You think, this is a great color, or this is a great trend. Then it's gone. Nobody wants it. You have all this inventory.
Yeah.
You got to get rid of that. I mean, I was like, oh, heck no. So, and then I got a job in product management, which is like running your own business. So I manage Chef Boyardee canned pasta. I manage pizza businesses. I manage Lux country style beans. I worked for Clairol. I did hair setters. So what happens there is that you actually are running your own P&L. Each brand has their own P&L, and you report to the president. Of course, you report to the vice president of marketing,
right.
but essentially, every year you go in front of the CEO to say, okay, here's my P&L, here's my budget, this is what I'm planning on doing, this is how we're going to grow this brand, et cetera, et cetera. So that was like training to be a CEO, because you were in charge of every line item on that P&L, and you were accountable for it. So I knew I wanted to have a business. I knew that product management was the way that I would learn how to run a business. And so, as I tell people, those golden handcuffs just kept me in corporate America way longer than I ever wanted to be. But at one point, when I was laid off, I started a business selling African American collectibles and fine art.
Okay.
So this was Black art, so it wasn't African; it was
Gotcha.
African American. And I ran it out of my house, and I started it by doing what I thought were focus groups. So I had these products that I was selling, and I would go to people's homes, and I would do a presentation. I would tell them all about these items, and then I would sell them. I would have the inventory right there. So it was almost like doing a Tupperware party, except for you got to take the Tupperware home at the end of the day.
Right. You had it right there.
Exactly. And we took, cash, checks, credit cards, the whole bit. And what would happen is the hostess would get a cut to buy whatever it was that she wanted to buy. And then people would then sign up to host parties at their own house. And so when we did that only on the weekend, so eventually I did get a job. And so I was doing my job and my business at the same time. And I would have my gallery open, which was my house, open during the holiday season so that people could come there and buy things. And we did book signings and plate signings and things like that. And authors would come to my house saying, I thought I was going to a gallery. And I'm like, this is a gallery.
Like, this is it. What's the problem? There will be people here. That's all that you need to know.
One time we had this author come that was very popular, and there were cars parked everywhere. People were parking in other people's driveway. It was crazy. So my neighbors were like, what is going on? I said, it's a family reunion. What am I going to say? I didn't want them to know I was running a business out of my house.
Right.
So, so that was the first business that really gave me a taste. I only had one employee, and that was a college student. But again, that, gave me a sense of, how to get inventory, how to price, how to market, et cetera. And, of course, then, all of my corporate training as well was very, very helpful.
No, see, that's right. You never know what the next step's going to be until you build it up, and you get all those skill sets. Then finally, you're ready for whatever the thing you really wanted to do. Sounds great.
Yeah.
So Hallmark brings you to Kansas, right? And then Hills brings you to Topeka, and then you could have left Topeka, but you didn't.
Right.
You decided to stay.
I did.
Why? I mean, I ask this question to everyone. I always like, what's your Topeka journey? How'd you end up here? And then what has kept you here?
So that's a really good question.
It's fine. Phones go off in here all the time.
Okay.
We don't edit, so everyone knows phones go off. It's
okay.
fine.
Yay. Sorry about that.
You're not the first. You won't be the last. Mine's done it too.
Okay,
it's all our.
Cut this off.
You're good.
I meant to silence it. Forgive me, audience, for not silencing.
They're
my
used to
phone.
us doing weird stuff in here. It's fine.
Yay. Yay. So, why did I stay? Well, first of all, I would say the first 17 years that I was here working for Hill's Pet Nutrition, it was like, I slept here because I traveled all the time.
Sure.
And so I didn't really get to know Topeka. I will say that my colleagues had no interest in living in Topeka.
Yeah.
They all wanted to live in Lawrence,
That's
and
a
they all
problem
did.
we've had, and we have that with a lot of companies.
Well, they look at downtown where the offices was on 8th here, and they're like, oh, I don't want to live here. I don't want to raise my kids here, and it just didn't look enticing to them.
Yeah.
And they felt that Lawrence was more diverse and a lot more to do, and it had KU and la-di-da-di-da.
Right.
But my thing was, I love my house. I love my neighborhood. There's a Kmart. I mean, there's a Walmart here. There's places to eat here. Like,
Well, I've told
what
people
else
who
do I wanna do?
say that some of those same things that you just said to me. I'm like, then you actually haven't gotten to know Topeka.
right.
You haven't been all across Topeka. You haven't actually spent time. I mean, if you look at our school systems, our schools are as highly rated as a lot of them across the state that are considered. Why would you go there? Have you actually looked at their teachers and their numbers? No. Well, then you don't know, right?
Right.
Same with the diversity issue. We're actually a pretty diverse city. It just means you haven't gone to parts of the city or been part of the community that's more diverse. You've stayed in your bubble. And that's a choice.
That's a choice.
Fine, but I always tell them it's okay if you want to make the choice not to live here, but your reasons are kind of a box that's going to collapse in on itself to some degree.
It is a total box. And, and I really couldn't say anything differently because I had not really immersed myself in the community. And so once I decided to stay here after I retired and open up 10 to 11 Care Pet Nursing Hotel. Even I was thinking, oh God, I'm gonna have to call my buddies in New York and ask them to design my logo, yada, yada, yada. But as it turned out, after going to several small business, I guess, events and conferences here in town, I met all of these people, and I started learning all the different businesses that were here, including, contractors, architects, advertising agencies, lawyers, anything that I needed were here, and the quality was excellent. Like, I didn't have to go to New York.
Right. You didn't feel like you were getting something less just because it
feel
wasn't
like
New
it was
York.
less than.
Right?
Exactly. And I mean, I'm still amazed, like when I see TK Magazine or something and I see all these businesses and I'm like,
Yeah, there's
I
a
had
lot
no
in these things
idea.
that people had no idea
I
that
mean-
that we're doing all this mass manufacturing of metals in one place, or we're doing.
Exactly.
They're like, no, we're not. I'm like, yeah, we
Yeah,
are.
we
We're
are.
building train parts. Or where do we build train parts? I've never heard of that company. Well, it's
Right.
real and it's over there. I
exactly.
promise you. It does
I mean,
exist.
we needed washing machines for our business, Jets
Oh, yeah.
service.
Yep.
That's where we get our washing machines. I mean, and I met him through, working with the Topeka Community Foundation. So again, connections have been, important for us. But my point being that unless you really spend time getting to know, getting yourself immersed into the Topeka community, you have no idea. And that's really Kansas, because people say to me, and I say, oh my God, there's nothing to do here. Well, it's different than New York, where I'm from, because you go down to Broadway, do a million things, or you can read the newspaper and see what's going on, yada, yada. Here, you have got to go on Facebook, or you've got to go on Eventbrite, or you've got to, talk to somebody in order to know what's going on.
Yeah.
It isn't just show up
Yep,
and it's
just
happening.
there.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. So these folks just had no idea about that, and they live in Lawrence, and I stayed here.
Yeah. Well, it's good. Don't leave us. We
No,
want you
I'm
to
not
stay.
leaving. Yeah, I'm not
We're
going
gonna keep
anywhere.
you here. That's
Yep.
the goal. We need
Yep.
good people
Yep.
to stay in
Exactly.
Topeka. That's
Yeah.
half the battle. No, I think that's important because I do think the more people immerse themselves, and truthfully to any community, they untap a lot of things they didn't realize. And keeping people here at some of these companies, I'm glad the companies are here. I don't want to lose any of you listening right now who don't, please stay in my community, right? But it'd be nice if more of you would live here. Now, I know I got to build some more houses and there's some issues there, but it's kind of, I always tell people, it's chicken and egg problem. If you don't stay here, then you can't help me better the community because I'm not retaining you.
Right.
And then you could advocate for what you want and help me grow the community, which would bring in the things you want. But if you don't stay here, I can't do that.
Can't do it.
So yeah, you're as much part of the problem. Sometimes I tell
As the
folks is I
solution.
get it, but stay,
Yeah,
please stay.
Yeah, we need people to stay here.
Yeah,
That's
we
right.
do. And for businesses too. I need businesses to have
Yeah.
a base to be able to have people who use them
Exactly.
and grow.
Exactly.
To that point, obviously you are a small business and you're immersed in working with other small businesses. And for years I have advocated that we do some things as a city, and I'm just talking from a government perspective, not a community perspective, to support our small businesses. We put aside $5 million that goes to JEDO, the Joint Economic Development Organization. And for years, we used to kind of dedicate 300,000 of that. And I used to sit up there for years and be like, that's not enough. And so 2 years ago, they're like, we've increased it for you. And I'm like, ooh, how much? 500,000. I'm like, well, that's not nothing, but
Right.
that's not what I was envisioning. I'm thinking half of that money or $1 million plus, right, to spread around, because landing the next big fish, that's important. We need big jobs or big companies that bring in a lot of jobs. I don't discount that. But I've always been a very firm believer in finding growth for the businesses we have here. And sometimes that's as small as if I got a barber who's got 2 chairs, but he's like, if I could get a little help, I can have 5 chairs, and that's 3 more people today who can be in this business, right? And I don't think we invest enough in that. And so I guess my bigger question to you is, how do we get the decision makers who, like me, to better understand the value in that investment as opposed to just always the nice flashy thing that looks great, to say, look what we brought to Topeka, right?
Right.
Because I haven't cracked that nut quite totally. I'm working on it, but so I ask everybody who has a small business here, how do we get that? How do we get them
That
as invested
momentum.
as we are in that mission?
Interestingly enough, the Go Topeka folks. I did get some financing from them when I opened, because during the pandemic, the Greater Topeka Partnership, they just did a great job of making sure people had access, small businesses had access to get some funding. And they still have some programs. But I think one of the things that would be great too is if there was a way to get money for small businesses with either very low interest or no payback at all.
Yep.
In order to help people, really grow. But essentially, one of the things that I think is amazing here, again, connections, is there are several networking groups here in Topeka of small businesses, whether it's BNI or ING or all these other ones that really do a great job of getting people together who are small business owners to sort of talk about their issues and what they're needing. And I think if you could do some kind of a, hearing
Yeah, right.
with some of these groups and
to
some of
explain
these, and some of these, with the council people, so that they could hear really what the needs are. That would be great. And some of the needs are not just money. It's
Right.
also employees. So, we talk about the size of the city of Topeka staying sort of stagnant, and how do we grow that? Well, how do we also make this a place where people want to come to learn so that they can get jobs? And, that is a big deal. I mean, we have that issue here as well of, needing employees. We all need really qualified employees to help us do the work that we're doing. And it's not always easy to find.
No, and it can't all be the workforce development has obviously multiple levels, right? You got people who go to college and they get that skill set, great. And then you've got people who go to whether it's Washburn Tech or to those trade schools,
Right.
and that's great.
Right.
But there is a level in there where I don't need to go to school for 2 years. I literally just need to learn some basic workforce development job skills
Right.
so that other businesses can then bring them in and hire them
Right.
without having them feeling like I had to go to school, which I maybe couldn't afford. Even as
Exactly.
affordable as Washburn Tech is, there may not be what they need to do there. So you're right. And we haven't really ever partnered with the community to take some of those resources and put them into that level of workforce development.
Yeah. I mean, I've had folks to come and work for us that don't know how to address an envelope, that don't know how to use a fax machine or a copier. And of course, they know how to use a computer, but we also need them to know how to use software, how to show up.
Right.
How to show up on time.
Right.
And those are the kind of things that, are not necessarily being taught in school. So, there's some of that. And so how do we actually incorporate that into some of our school lessons here in town? I think that would be important. Because if you're showing up for school, then you also need to learn how to make sure you're showing up on time and you understand the ramifications of not showing up or not showing up on time, right? It doesn't just impact you, it impacts the whole operation.
It's interesting you say that because as I'm sitting here processing that, I realize the schools have the structure, but they obviously don't have maybe the people who can come in and do the lessons. But if you got kids, especially juniors and seniors in high school,
Right.
who have another hour or two open, I'm sure the schools here would be happy. We'll provide you the space
Right.
and the students if you can provide us those individuals who will come in. And I'm sure we have plenty of people in school. Yes, I can go in and teach, be part of a team for a semester that goes teach kids workforce development skills.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that term, workforce development skills.
Yeah, because that's
a
what
beautiful
it is.
thing.
Yeah.
That is
That's
exactly
what
what
we
it is.
need.
That
Yeah.
is really what we need because whether it's working at McDonald's, working at TLC, working at a manufacturing plant like, Mars or whatever, those are things that, we can all use.
Yeah.
And it's important. And I'm sure I'd be happy to chip in time to go into the schools and do that. And I know that at the end of the year, these kids don't really have a whole lot to do in school.
Yeah, right. They get there and it's like,
they like
fill
nothing
that
to
dead
do.
time with
fill that
something
dead
useful.
time. Something useful, something
Yeah.
that's really helpful, and
We'll
will
play
help
video
them.
games later. It's fine. Let's do something useful first.
And I mean, whether they're going to college or not,
Yeah.
it's going to help them.
Well, yeah, because they're going to need that skill. It's a different skill. They're going
Yeah.
to want to work through college, and that's
Exactly.
interesting. No, that's a good
Yeah.
way to do it.
Yeah.
Gotta talk to somebody about that. I don't know who, but I gotta think about that one. That's the kind of stuff we need.
Maybe the school superintendents, or, something like that.
Yeah. Well, what have we not talked about? I'm gonna have you ask me some questions in a minute. But
Okay.
what have we not touched on that you wanted to talk about, mention? Maybe nothing, but I always tell people, what would you something we didn't talk about that you'd like to throw out there?
Is there anything I want to throw out about me?
You don't have to.
No, I mean, I'm happy here in Topeka. I love our location on 17th Street.
Yep.
I'd love it if people, came and, joined our Facebook page, became a follower on tlcpetnursinghotel.com or TLC Pet Nursing Hotel. Tell a friend. One of the things that we did when we opened was we were very focused on caring for older pets. But as we've evolved over these last 5 years, it's really anxious pets.
Gotcha.
Pets that are antisocial, that don't get along with other dogs, dogs that are reactive. When they see other dogs, they want to go after them. And so what our business is that we have pets in individual suites, and they don't come out and play with each other. We do enrichment down in the basement, which is, again, one-on-one, where they learn how to use their brains and, go down and do puzzles. And that uses their brain. It actually makes them tired. They have to figure out how to get the treats out of the different puzzles that we give them. We do...
I'll do a puzzle for a treat too. So,
we do
if
field
it's the right
trips.
treat. If it's the right treat.
We use Hill's Pet Nutrition.
Of course
treats,
you
of course.
do. Good job.
Yes.
Good job.
But we take them on field trips. They get, baths and nails at us. And so, it's all one-on-one. We just introduced a new service called Stories and Snuggles, or Snuggles and Stories, S&S, where a staff member goes in and reads a book to the pet, for 15, 20 minutes, snuggles with them, which, they just love. So they're
like
getting
to be
that
talked
attention.
to. People may think I'm crazy because I talk to my cats, but I'm telling you, they may not understand me. I don't think they understand me. I want to be very clear about that. But I know it's an interaction, and they're getting what they need.
Right.
And you're getting what you need to vent about the world and tell your cat, can you believe this happened to me?
I mean,
It helps us both. It's therapy for both of us.
You'll find them looking, or they'll, we have pictures where they're really looking in the books.
Yeah.
I mean, they're fast, like, what's going on here? So that's been a really great service for us, as well as enrichment. So those are the kind of things that we do. So they're not going out and hanging with, 5 or 6 other dogs. It's all one-on-one. They're in glass enclosed suites. As I said, it's very bougie. It's very clean. It's very neat. And, the pet parents who come for tours, they're really impressed. And the veterinarians who come for tours are very impressed. So, we're pretty proud of what we do. Yeah, and we have a great team. And I'm very proud of the work that they do and how they get along. So, and we have the Hive coming in a couple of weeks to do some team building with us. And we're going to make some candles and things like that.
Yeah, that'll be great.
So, we try to help other businesses as well and take a part of, what they're doing.
Well, awesome. All right. Well, then I guess it's your turn. I tell every guest to bring a couple questions. As I say every time, I don't know what they are. I don't want to know. Maybe I should, but I don't want to know. So.
No, I mean, you're really great on your feet. So we talked about, how do we increase the number of people in Topeka? We're pretty steady with our population. Do you have any idea why people don't stay here?
Yeah, there's I think now, having had a couple years where I've really looked at it. I mean, before I got on the council, I was like, yeah, we need to do that. And then you get on there like, I really need to dig into why this doesn't happen. And I think there's a couple different levels. We do have some housing issues, right? Yes, you can find a house in Topeka, but we really, on every level, we need to add some more housing, because there's people who want different levels. Some of the people we talked about that you're talking about want a very different level of house than just people who are part of that workforce development who need a different level. We have to have a diverse amount of housing. So if we don't have that, if I don't have anywhere for you to live, I can't attract new people, right? So that's a piece of it. I do think we have to continue to invest in quality of life issues. And I've told people one of the most difficult things as an elected official that we deal with on a regular basis is that balance between making sure that I am putting every resource possible into police, fire, roads, all the government essentials, but also recognizing that sometimes quality of life choices are just as critical to people for their health, for their well-being, for the look and beautification of the community, and just for wanting them to stay here long term because there's stuff to do.
Right.
They want parks, right? They want walkways. They want a vibrant downtown, but that's not going to naturally happen on its own with just the private market. You have to have some investment. Finding that line is very difficult, and I don't think we balance it all the time very well in Topeka, which has led to some of those issues of why don't people want to stay here? Well, they want to stay here for a while, but then they want to go to Lawrence because they have Mass Street, or they want to go to Kansas City because they have certain things. And we're not ever going to have all that because of our size, and we can have some more of that.
Right.
And so I think the quality of life piece in that part is critical. And I do think it's an issue of people talk a lot about taxes. Yes, we have to have taxes do play a factor. Cost of living matters, right?
Yes, totally.
And as we just the other night on the council went through the property tax discussion, you have to you can't look at those in their own bucket. They may be their own. Property taxes may be in its separate bucket from utility rates, but at the same time, the same people have to pay all of those buckets. They got to drop a coin in every bucket. And you have to understand that when you're making a decision for one, what the impact is on other. So if you're going to keep raising utility rates, you can't keep also raising property taxes. You shouldn't raise any of them. But the point is, you can't then say, well, these are different funds. Well, they're not for the average person who has to pay into all of it. And I don't think we've balanced that very well. I think sometimes we try to look at it individually. So if I don't have a great place for you to live, and then when you do get here, it costs too much to live here, and then I haven't invested enough in quality of life, why is my community going to grow?
Right.
And I think those three things combined have led to some of these issues of just no growth.
Yeah.
We haven't lost a bunch of people, but we will at some point because we're going to age out and we're not going to get new people.
I know. I worry about
the
that.
The last piece is that we don't do a good job of. I always tell folks, I realize Washburn is not as big as KU, but it's 5,000 students right in the middle of Topeka.
Yeah.
We don't retain very many. The students who come here love it here. You talk to Washburn students who are here for 4 years, they're like, this community was great to me. I loved it. Oh, where are you going? Somewhere else.
Yeah,
Why? And so if we could keep a higher percentage of those students too, that would make a huge difference because then they start to build a life here and stay in the community. And so it's not that we don't try, but we don't obviously try hard enough because the percentage, I can't remember what it is, but it's really
low.
sadly low.
Yeah.
It's very low.
Yeah.
So that's a resource right in the middle of the city that we should be able to tap into. And by itself, if we could retain more of those folks, we'd see a growth in population.
I always wonder, Washburn is more of a commuter school, is it not? I don't know what
it is, but actually they're finding that more of their students would like to live. They have some housing, and I know right now their leadership is actually looking at a way they could increase housing because
on
they're
campus.
finding more students that come here want to actually stay, whether it's on campus or some kind of nearby Washburn living situation, want to actually live in Topeka, not commute from Osage County. And we do have folks who Osage County, Jackson County, even Doug, who do commute in, but they're finding more and more students want to be a part of the Topeka Washburn community. And so they're looking at ways to expand that kind of housing.
I think one of the things, with my background doing focus groups, I just think that is something that, could be done with the juniors and the seniors at Washburn to kind of find out what is it that would make you stay here? Yeah. Because if we're not asking, we don't know. Right. So, that's something that I think, if you worked with Dr. Majicek to figure out, is there a way that we can put together some sessions with the students to find out what is it that we need to do? So even if we lose that group of students, by the time, we figure out how to make it work, we start, keeping more and more of the students here in town. And of course, they have to have job opportunities. But the fact of the matter, as I said earlier, there are so many companies here that I don't even think.
People I get it. If you want to be an astronaut, you probably can't stick it to me. All right. I'm sure there are some careers. But to your point that you made earlier, there are marketing companies here. And I always laugh, joke with people, although it's true, but I remind my son sometimes, who's 12, when he's opening a package. I'm like, an engineer designed that package. Believe it or not, it wasn't just someone with an engineering degree figured out how to put your Funko Pop in that box, right? And so I tell people, we have local companies that need those people too. So when you think, well, what am I going to do? No, we have companies that need people who know how to design the products they're making and the packaging that they're making. And they're here. So yeah, to your point, we've got to just start doing a better job of connecting them, because if we can get them, you're right, when they're juniors and seniors, to build relationships with those companies now,
Right.
they're more likely to get hired on either with them or with somebody that
Mhm.
company knows and say, stay here. This is a
Stay
really
here.
good person. Don't
Exactly.
don't
Don't
let
let 'em
this
go.
22-year-old leave
Exactly.
Topeka, because they're going to be a
Exactly.
great employee.
Yeah, I will say that in the time that I've lived here, and I've been here since 2004 now, the taxes have creeped
They
up
have.
horribly. And then the taxes on TLC in that building.
Oh, now, and I always say I'm in a good position on this because I have been a hawk. In fact, we just had our, again, revenue neutral, and I voted to stay revenue neutral. It didn't pass, but I tried, and
Right.
I've done that many years because I understand we need money. I need to give my employees raises at the city. All right, it's if I don't give them the occasional cost of living, they're not going to be my employee very
Right.
long. And we have to pay people more. The cost of asphalt has gone up. The cost, just like your insurance went up, the city's insurance went up. So it's okay to recognize two things are true. We have those same situations that everybody else does, but at times we again have to recognize not everything can go up at once.
Right.
So I voted against the water rate, and it wasn't that I don't think the utility rates have to go up at some point, but how you do it is as important as when you do it over time and make it easier for people. Same with property taxes. They're too damn high. They just are. And we need the revenue, but there's a better balance. And so to your point, right, the tax thing for businesses, we've got to find some concessions, but just for the average person, because I don't want people to be like, well, I'm reached that point. I'm going to, yes, I'm older and my income's going to be fixed as I retire. So Topeka's not the place I'm going to retire. I'm going to sell my house. I'm going to move somewhere else. You know, where it's even if it's just a little lower, that margin matters.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lose those folks either, just
Exactly.
because a tax got a little too high. And otherwise they would have spent the rest of their life here. Yeah.
And so, why do you want to be mayor?
Oh, you know, we'll give the generic answer, and then which it always sounds generic, but it really is true. And I try to not make it cliched or generic, but this is my hometown. I mean, I grew up here, right? My wife grew up here. We're raising our kid. Like, I love this community. I can tell people where I learned to drive in North Topeka. I learned to ride my bike over at Crestview. Like, I still have friends and family all across this community. And so while I tell people it sounds cliched, the first answer is always, this is my community. And at some point, I got to the point in life where I said, okay, my skill set is kind of this, and I think I can use that to help the community in this role, both as a council person and now hopefully as mayor, because that's just my career path has led me there, my skill set has led me there, and my knowledge of and history of this community has led me to, hopefully it all comes together to where I can benefit the community that I've going to call home. And we own businesses here, and so we're fully invested. And so that's part of it, is just, this is my town, like, and I love it. The other part of that is, though, we got real problems, and some of them, as someone who's been here my whole life, I'm like, how is this still a problem? And I don't have all the answers because I am not that smart, right? And anyone who tells you they are, be careful, be wary of that person. But I do think have cultivated over the years, through trial and error, the ability to communicate with folks in this community and bring them to the table and say, I don't know how to solve this, but I think you folks do. So let's do that together and then build that collaborative effort. And that does take work, and that does take years of doing that to understand, okay, this person sitting to the right of me does not like this person sitting to the left of me. But the only way we're going to solve this problem for this community is to find whatever middle ground we can and get them to at least agree on that, move it forward. And then you guys can go fight in the parking lot about the other stuff later, right? And so I do think, too, being in government affairs for 20 years and seeing how that does and doesn't work, both at the Capitol and in this community and other communities, you sort of learn some of that, too, as to how to sit down with people and be able to say to them, guys, we're all here for the love of this community, all of us. Yeah, we disagree on these things. The other day I had a meeting, and it sounds like the start of a joke, but it's true. If you'd walked into a coffee shop here in town, you would have seen a leader in the Republican Party, a leader of the Democratic Party, a leader of the Libertarian Party, and me, the independent, having coffee, talking about taxes and a few other things. And that was four very different philosophies in this world we were finding common ground on a couple of issues because we recognized we have to have these conversations. And that's one of those moments where you're like, man, if we can do this as mayor, man, we could actually get some stuff done around here. And so that's the second piece of it, is just how do we keep bringing the community together? Because I've always said, the old axiom used to be, you got to have everyone at the table. That's true. But it doesn't do any good if they're at the table and then you actually never listen to them.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the trick. That's the kind of the sleight of hand. Well, you were all at the table, and then after a while, those people at the table are like, yeah, but you never do anything we said, right? It's like, yeah, but I had you at the table. Well, who cares? Eventually, if you don't listen to me, it's just a show. It's not.
Right.
And so I think that's the next level that we're all trying to evolve to, is how do we go from we're all at the table to we're actually moving some stuff forward that those other voices have. So there's my very long answer, even though I could do it shorter, but of kind of the reasons the only way I think we're going to make Topeka better. And so I'm going to try to bring all that skill set that I've learned, sometimes failed, but sometimes succeeded at, and see if we can make it work in City Hall.
So do you want to go any further from being a mayor to any other type of political office?
And years from now, people remember that time you lied. You said, but I really don't. And I tell folks that's part of why I've served local government. It's because this is my hometown and because I love this community. I also am a firm believer that local government can do more for you than any other level of government. It can also hurt you too quicker, right? But the federal government's its own mess, and there's things we need out of that. But regardless of who's in charge, the federal government is always going to be unattainable to say. It's so hard to connect with them. State government does a lot of great things through all the departments we have, but the legislature only meets 3 months a year. Right. And then those departments are their own level of bureaucracy, and you can't just walk into one of those departments and say, I need some help. You'll get it. You can do that in city government. Again, it's hard too, and we're a bureaucracy, and I tell people we can't fix it all right away, but we can fix it quicker than anybody else if we really do it. And so I really do believe that local government touches you more than any other level, which is why it's really sad when the lowest turnouts we have are in our local elections compared to the state and federal. I'm like, the folks who impact your life the most in government are the least amount of people are voting for them.
Right. And all the people that are complaining about Topeka and this and that and the other thing, where are they when it's time to vote?
Right.
I don't get it. This town is so interesting. There's a couple of things. Number one, when something new opens up, it's the biggest thing since, bread. And then 6 months later, they don't show up anymore.
Right.
And then when it's time to vote, nobody shows up. When it's time to bitch, everybody shows up.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, I know from other places that I've lived that is not typical.
Yeah.
So Topeka is unique in that way. And I really wish people would get out and vote because
me too,
does
'cause
make
it
a difference. It matters.
And so I'm happy. I think my sweet spot is local government. And, I think too, when you get into other levels, I guess this is a criticism. It's also just a reality of how our system works is you get a little more beholden to the system to some degree, right? And being a lobbyist for 20 years, I've seen times where you have individuals, and this applies to both parties. Nobody is immune from this, where you personally say, man, I really want to break free. But the consequences of that to your political future, to what you can accomplish in the time you're there, if you want to move so forward, you say, I have to make that concession today because I got to stay in line with this group. That's tough, and I don't knock them for that at times because I get why they have to make those choices. I don't have to make those choices the same way at local government.
Sure.
I have people to respond to, i.e. the public, and why did you make this decision, and what the heck were you thinking? And that's all fair, but it's not the same level of you're kind of beholden to this part of a political system. And I work in that every day, and I'm fine, and I love those people, and they're great, most of them, but I don't need to be a part of that.
Yeah.
I'm good where I'm at.
Well, the other thing is, it's interesting, I'm on the PAC committee for the Greater Topeka Partnership.
Yeah.
And when we talk to the candidates for city council, for mayor, one of the things that they bring up is crime, that they want to take care of crime in Topeka. What's your point of view on that?
Yeah, so a couple levels of the crime issue. I think things like petty theft, car thefts, they're a different level of difficult to combat because the police can come in and try to work on it after the fact. But it's now some of those are underlying issues, right? Of other elements we need to address the root cause. I think we can do that. We have to get kids early, make sure they're on the path, make sure that people have the resources they need so they don't feel like they have to steal, to just get by or make a living. So there's that piece of it. But I think when we look at the violent crime issues, a lot of that is areas that have community engagement, whether it's through their police or through some arm of their police that's citizen focused, see reductions in violent crime. I mean, I've been looking at the cities, the big cities who have seen this, and we're talking the Chicagos, the Detroits, the cities who've had real issues, who've suddenly over the last 2 years or 3 years seen actual decreases in their violent crime. It's because they've put together units that are focused, citizen focused, with a police element, because those citizens need to be protected, but people who can go connect with the community and build those bridges to say, hey, talk to us. I get that you have some distrust for whatever reason with government officials or police, but I'm not one of I'm working with them, but I'm not one of them. I'm
Right.
you, I'm part of the community. So you get information, which helps you with prevention, or if a crime occurs, you can solve it quicker, which then helps. If you've got drug house related issues, which we have in town, those lines of communication open up differently, which help you get to them. That's a program. Those kinds of programs, I think, are what's going to work. We have a few of those that are formulating now. One is through the Y that got a grant called Civic. They're putting together their grant program, and they've been working on it for 2 years. I think they're about to explain to us how theirs would work. Vallejo's got some people we're now bringing in that go out with our police departments. If we do more of that, and we should, I'm going to hope it's worked like it works where I can
Everywhere
send those
else.
other communities
Yeah.
where it's starting to show an impact as it relates to the violent crime issues.
Yeah.
The shootings are difficult because we're very clear. I don't want to dismiss them at any level. And there's always one or two outliers that are god awful horrible. But the majority of our shootings are related to three things: gang activity, drug activity, and sadly domestic violence issues. Right? So we know what the root causes of those are. We just need to then that tells us attack those better. Because we can tell if you're not involved in one of those activities, you're not likely to get shot in Topeka, Kansas. Again, that doesn't diminish that it's happening.
Right.
But the good news, I guess, is we know what those issues are. So now we need to start putting resources into the root cause of those issues to reduce that problem. So that's why I say there's different levels. There's kind of the theft, there's the violent crime, and then there's the shootings and homicides and that issue that we've had.
Yeah, those are every time there's another one, the number just kind of creeps up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. And then we hit every time in the summer, it gets hot and those go up again because of some of those issues, especially domestic violence, which is just awful. I will say one of the steps we took a year, or maybe it's been 2 years now, which was our staff came up with it, and it's been great, is we took all of our domestic violence cases in-house to our municipal court. We used to be reliant on the district court and the district attorney who's overwhelmed with lots of things. And our attorneys and our police said, we can do that. If we would take this in-house, we can get on these cases quicker, more effectively, deal with these cases, get these folks into whatever, whether it's jail, whether it's a program to rehabilitate the issue. And it's worked. Now, there's a cost to that. It has cost us more as a city to fund that program, pay for it, make sure it has the resources. But the flip side is our officers will tell you it's really helped on the street. Domestic violence is down a little bit. They're not seeing some of the same repetition. We're not seeing, so that's been a very positive step, come with a cost. But the flip side is what's the cost to the people
Exactly.
on the other side of that? I'd rather pay a little more to know that we have a little bit less of that problem because we're able to address it quicker.
Great.
So those are the kind of things we got to do to find the root cause and deal with it.
Deal with it.
Because police will tell you they're not the preventative. They are to some degree. Having them
Sure.
in
Having
neighborhoods
them
and
in
talking and
neighborhoods, yeah.
communicating is preventative.
Right.
But at the same time, there's people they'll tell you, I've arrested that guy 5 times. That's all I can do with this case. It's up to the courts, and if you got to give them the resources to deal with the problem, I can only show up when you call me. So it's not all on our police officers to deal with it. It's on us policymakers to make sure we're putting the resources in the right spot.
And how do you feel about the, having a city manager as well as a mayor? How does that work?
Yeah, I tell people not to be flippant about it, but that's the system we have. So the first answer is that's what I have to work within because that's what we have. Now, that was created by the citizens. It's now been 20 years.
Has it?
It was a citizens petition, got it on the ballot. That's the charter they created. I said, if people want to change it, let's do it. Put together a citizens group, have the conversation, look at whether that would be, I would argue, maybe instead of going back to a strong mayor form of government, which would be fine, especially if I'm mayor. Yeah, great power, right? Yeah, right. But no, really, they have a middle ground, and it's a city administrator form of government. Because there is value in having someone who has a background, education, and understanding of how to run a city like our size that has 12 departments and 1,100 employees, that has a lot of moving parts. putting all that at the whim of whoever you elect and hope they're smart enough to operate all this, right?
Yeah.
Can be a little scary.
Mm-hmm.
A city administrator form of government splits the difference. It says that you have a strong mayor form again with a strong city council who's guiding the city administrator to put in act a lot of your policies and be the day-to-day person. But a lot of the big decisions that the city manager form of government cedes to the city manager revert back to that council and mayor to make. So are we really going to sign this big contract? Are we really going to, that would go back, give them more oversight over those things, and the administrator would then follow through with it, but have that expertise to do it. So I would argue if we really want to make that change, that's something I'd to look at to see if that's kind of the middle ground of giving the people the oversight they want with the people they've elected, but also having someone who's in there who understands how to run a city.
Exactly.
You know?
That's
so
important.
that when you reelect new people, if you like who you have at the top, you can be like, at least we got consistency there, and that person's smart, and they're going to keep running the city, you know, no matter who we elected. So that'd be the form I would look at.
You want to come up here and say hi to Spencer?
Yep. Hello, pumpkin. Looking good. You got a little bow on there, a green bow. You're very soft.
This is Mimi. She's 17.
17, man. You've been good. She's been just walking around, chilling, wondering what's going on.
She likes coming to new places.
Me too. All right, one of the things we do every week as we get towards the end here is I got an email of the week that I have you read me, and then I try to hope I have an answer.
Oh, yeah. This is a really good question. I agree. Whoever sent this in. Does Fairlawn Road really need to be closed for a year?
Yeah,
Give me a break. Come on.
This won't make anyone feel better, but if everyone knows, it's inconveniencing me too, if that helps, because it's a path we take our son to school every day. So it is taking us longer too. I have to get up earlier now just to get my kid to school. But
What's the
this is not my little violin. I just want people to know this is one project that. So here's the problem. And I did ask this question as they were putting together the project. It definitely needs to be done. We've got pipes under there that are failing. And if people want to flush their toilets, we better start replacing some pipes, right? And there's the bridge. So it's going to be closed between 25th and 22nd for a year, basically. So even though that's only a small part of that Fairlawn, it means you can't go through all the way, you know, from 29th to 21st. So some of those back roads. The problem is when they design that road, because some of it eventually, not the dirty stuff, the clean water, goes out to the creek. Mm-hmm. And so when they designed it, though, the pipes go across Fairlawn, not along Fairlawn. So the only way to go dig deep and replace all of these pipes along 22nd to 25th, of which there's a lot of houses that those pipes feed and take water out of, they have to tear that section up across the road. And it's a 1-year process. So yes, trust me, I asked many times, we really can't do one lane at a time. And they're like, well, Councilman, we can't put in the pipe that's the length of the street and not close down the whole street. I'm like, you can't cut it up. And they're like, come on, man. This is why I'm not an engineer and I don't work in this. But yes, so it's a legitimate question. I will say we had a lot of community meetings with the people over there. And most of the citizens who live over there, even though it's going to be inconvenient, are happy the project's being done because they understand the need for it with the issues they're having. If you don't live over there, you're like, come on, why are we doing this?
Exactly.
And I think that happens a lot with these projects. I know when 29th was closed down for a while towards California, that was very inconvenient for the businesses, and we worked around that. But the people who lived out there right along it was like, thank you. We've needed this for years. Yes, it's inconvenient, but it's only for this period of time, and then we're going to have good infrastructure for the next 100 years again.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it's at. The community, people who live over there aren't too upset, but understandably everybody else is.
Yeah, we need good infrastructure. Every time we have one of those pipes burst and the water goes gushing all over the place, I think, oh, this is terrible.
I know, and we're getting there. It's going to take time because when we deferred infrastructure costs for years, and so we're an old city now. We're not a new city, and so we have pipes that are hitting 100 years. Got to be fixed.
They got to be
and
replaced.
Even the ones that are 80 years, it's time to start fixing them. So yes, Fairlawn has to be closed for a year. I'm very sorry.
Oof.
Maybe they'll get it done sooner.
Wouldn't that be great?
I know. So we're gonna.
Where's that infrastructure money?
That's right.
Bring it on.
All right. Well, we're gonna end with a question of the week. You don't have to answer this one, but it's the one we put out there. People can go check it out on our Instagram or our Facebook page. We post this, which will come out a couple days. And the question this week is, over the next couple of weeks, there are going to be some forums for candidates for city council, for mayor, And I'll put some of those on our same social media platforms. But my question of the week is going to be: are you going to watch them or go to any of them? I just want to know people's feedback out there if they're going to
Well,
show
I'll
up
be
or
there
watch any of
tomorrow
them.
at the WIBW
they'll
one
do that
with
one.
Melissa Booner.
Yeah, they're doing District 7 and 9, and then next week they'll do District 1, 3, and the mayor's race. And then there's a lot of other groups now, whether it's NIAs, League of Women Voters, some other groups who are starting to put those together over the next couple
Yeah.
weeks. So people tire of us very quickly over the next 60 days.
Well, bottom line is they may be tired, but they need to come out and vote.
Yep. Well, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm
It's
glad
been a
you did
pleasure.
it.
It's been a
Glad both
blast.
of you did it. Hi,
And
Mimi.
Yeah, Mimi.
Good you were here too.
Yeah.
Made it fun.
She's had a great time.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good luck
everybody.
with your race.
Thank you.